I'm having surgery to address my lipedema. You know, I'm stage 4, which is like the worst.
So you do not have lymphedema.
He's so confident going into that surgery. There was no magic from Wegovy. I am personally going back on Wegovy.
Hello or welcome to my channel. This will be my final update on Anna, for this year at least. I have some other topics that I also want to explore, and honestly, Anna's content, at least to me, is more enjoyable when it's summarized over several months, rather than dissecting every little thing piece by piece, especially considering how infrequently Anna's been posting lately. Her last video was over a month ago, and it was nothing more than an ad for her Christmas sweaters, which I've already covered. Well, her last video was actually an ad as well as a response to all the size complaints, which was really just a big nothing burger to explain why she thought the size of the cardigans and the length of the cardigans was totally fine and intentional.
I'm gonna go take a nap because I'm actually really tired.
Yeah, girl, we know. Now, what I haven't talked about yet, and what we're getting into today, is her semi-recent second liposuction surgery and her oh-so-familiar fitness guru persona, which she seems to be stepping back into. And this is honestly my favorite genre of Anna, so make sure to stick around for that. But first, in case you're not fully caught up in the Annaverse, let's go over a brief recap of how we got here and the timeline of Anna's lipedema diagnosis and her series of liposuction surgeries. Anna has known that she has lipedema for many years. In a previous video, I mentioned that she's known that she's had this disease for at least the past 4 years.
Here you go, I do. I have lipedema. Even when I accepted it, I still didn't make any changes in my life. I was just like, whatever, I'm gonna progressively gain weight forever. I might as well like have fun while that's happening.
But digging even further back, as far back as 2017, she claimed rather casually that she has lipedema.
Take into account that I have abnormally large thighs because of lipedema, so just something to think about.
So she's known that she has this condition for at least the past 7 years, and probably much longer than that. Yet during that time, she's done very little to manage her condition. Aside from fluctuating between the occasional weight loss and weight gain, the general trend was to gain weight over this past 7 years. However, although she has long known that she has this condition, the journey that we're discussing today didn't begin until around spring of 2024. And back in January of 2024, Anna had alluded to the possibility of surgery in her future, but she wanted to make as much progress as she could before going down that route.
And eventually I probably want to be able to have lipedema surgery, but I don't want to do that until I feel like I've made as much progress as I can on my own. And then all's left is really, you know, that surgical part.
Despite this proclamation, only 4 months later in April, Anna started sharing her plans to address her lipedema through surgery, specifically multiple rounds of liposuction. She had no more weight to lose, and all the fat that she had left was unburnable by her body. And so she began the process of qualifying for lipedema surgery. However, she would not announce this decision to her audience on YouTube until sometime in June, where she had still not lost any more weight.
So I have lost about 100 pounds, and in January I stopped losing weight. It seems like I'm producing lipidemic cells faster than I'm burning like healthy fat cells, which is part of the reason I stopped losing weight.
Poor Anna.
In 1 week, I am having surgery to address my lipedema.
Anna's first surgery, which targeted her outer legs, took place in July, and she heavily documented this procedure, showcasing her surgical team and promoting the clinic as well as the ALT program. And after this surgery, Anna announced that she had 11.5 liters of fat removed. Although I do believe this is probably 11.5 liters of total fluid removed, so that would include whatever was also injected into her during that whole procedure. In any case, only about a month later in August, Anna had her second liposuction surgery, this time on her inner thighs.
These areas are looking much better,
Yeah.
but there's still, I can tell there's a lot of firmness here that's gonna begin to go down.
Yeah.
This surgery, we're gonna do the whole full inner thigh all the way around. We're gonna move numerous liters, release all the fibrosis. I can tell there's a lot of congestion right over here.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how much fluid exactly was removed on this second round, because this time she shared far less about her surgery. Mostly quick stories about her travel to and from the clinic, as well as her pre-op appointment and her progress pics. Which, I don't know, I guess these are going to be used as before pictures? And again, this was her in early August. Honestly, I'm glad that she didn't share more about the surgery because I have seen enough. I really don't need any more of the gory details. What she did share in more detail after this second liposuction surgery was her recovery progress and treatment plan. And that sort of brings us to where we are today. As of this video, at the very end of 2024, Anna has had 2 liposuction surgeries, both on her legs, and she's still in the recovery phase. And she hasn't made any concrete plans, or at least she hasn't published any details about her upcoming surgery on her arms. That said, she did previously mention that she'll have another 2 to 4 surgeries, or like 4 to 6 in total. However, any future surgeries that she may have in the works are delayed at least until January. And given her recent complaints about shoulder and arm pain, supposedly due to her lipedema, it seems likely that she's still planning to proceed with those surgeries on her arms. But before we dive into that whole can of worms, I do want to mention that previously I've had a big problem with Anna's lack of transparency and sometimes outright lies. So in fairness, I want to give Anna props here for being very upfront about her decision to have surgery and openly sharing that with her audience. She could have easily pulled an Alexandra Rodriguez and hidden this whole thing and not mentioned surgery. And if you don't know who Alex is, she had a tummy tuck, didn't mention it at all, and claimed it to be natural weight loss, among many other problematic things that she has done. But Anna didn't do that. At least in this instance, she was very open and honest. And that's really good to see. But honestly, if Anna had kept quiet about having liposuction, I doubt anyone would have guessed that she's had surgery to remove what now amounts to upwards of 20 liters of fluid and fat, because her appearance has not really changed. If anything, she looks about the same size as she did prior to her surgeries, if not a little bit larger. And unfortunately, given the route that Anna has chosen to go down, specifically using liposuction to address her lipedema, this lack of progress is not unsurprising, especially when you look at even the surface level of research that's available. And this chapter is why it took me so long to come out with this video. This video was supposed to be published, I think my original plan was like 4 weeks ago, maybe more. But then I started to get really confused with the mixed messaging around this subject, and I didn't know how I really wanted to articulate this. And that's because there are 2 very different standards regarding the treatment as well as the definition of lipedema. Put very simply, it's North America versus the rest of the world. But let's start with Anna's results after her first surgery. Because after this surgery, she reported feeling great, claiming immediate improvements to her levels of pain and increased mobility around her knees. And honestly, if that's true, that is great to hear.
So the first 24 hours after surgery, I felt freaking great.
I already feel a lot better, to be really honest, which is kind of shocking because I literally had surgery 15 minutes ago.
Guys, I am 1 day out of surgery and I am dancing with my nurse.
However, whether or not liposuction was the best choice for someone in Anna's situation to make remains a topic of debate. And before diving into this, I want to preface that this discussion will be about lipedema and liposuction in general, not specifically to Anna. You know, Anna made her decision. She found a clinic that approved her. She secured the means to pay for that, whether that be through copay or insurance or even out of pocket. Whatever it was, in the end, she proceeded and had this surgery. She's an adult, she's allowed to make her own health decisions, and what's done is done. My focus, at least in this portion of the video, is not to specifically critique Anna's choices. Instead, I want to explore how liposuction as a treatment option is framed for people like Anna, because there is a stark divide between 2 schools of thought regarding lipedema treatment. Essentially, the USA with the lipedema standard of care, authored in large part by Karen Herbst, versus the numerous publications put out by the International Lipedema Association, made up of 60 experts from 22 countries. The treatment approach promoted by the ALT program, or the Advanced Lipedema Treatment Program, as well as Anna's main surgeon, Dr. Amron, and the clinic's head of research, Dr. Karen Herbst, directly contradicts recommendations from the ILA, or the International Lipedema Association. Specifically, the ILA suggests that someone in Anna's condition, categorized with obvious severe morbid obesity, should have never been approved for liposuction surgery.
It's cruel to tell these patients just to go lose weight with it.
In a 5-part research article outlining the myths and facts surrounding lipedema, specifically in part 4, it was articulated really well why somebody with severe morbid obesity should not be getting liposuction. And honestly, this was kind of fascinating to me. Well worth a read if you're into reading research articles or you're just like more curious about the topic. I'll link all 5 parts in the description below. But in part 4, the ILA findings suggested that within a year, the weight of the suctioned adipose tissue, that is the body fat, will increase. Second, the cosmetic effect on the thigh after 1 year will persist, so that's a good thing. However, they also found that the area will also see an increase in adipose tissue. And last, most interesting for our case study with Anna, they also found that there will be an increase in predominantly visceral fat in the abdominal region, which is known to be associated with an increased cardiovascular risk. Essentially, the study suggests that if obesity is left unchecked, sucking out the fat from less harmful areas like the butt and the thigh can result in a redistribution of fat to more dangerous areas like the abdomen. And interestingly, a lot of people who are following Anna's story have already pointed out that her abdomen seems to be growing in size since her surgeries. If that's accurate, that is concerning, but it's also consistent with the research from the ILA. The articles from the ILA also challenge some of the core principles that Anna has claimed about her lipedema. First, regarding lipedema as a progressive disorder.
I have a condition called lipedema. If you're not familiar with this condition, it's a progressive disorder, which means it does get worse over time.
Lipedema is not a progressive disorder. Lipedema does not make you fat or make you gain weight. Instead, the disease of obesity is progressive. And with worsening obesity, lipedema and the symptoms of lipedema will also worsen. And these stages of lipedema seem to be more accurately described as stages of obesity, with worsening lipedema as a result. Additionally, Anna has also been known to make claims regarding her ability, or rather lack of ability, to lose any further weight.
Because this fat is not burnable by the body, which means diet and exercise won't have any effect on it. This is fat that cannot be burned by the body, so once you have it, it's there for life.
So basically your fat changes and becomes resistant to being burned, either by exercise or by dieting.
Lipedema patients do not defy physics. Diet does have an effect on obesity and in turn lipedema. Losing weight does improve lipedema and lipedema symptoms. However, it should be noted that the research summarized in the ILA specifically emphasized that yo-yo dieting should be avoided. And I think we've all been screaming this at Anna for ages now. She needs a whole lifestyle change, not a short-term diet. And while it's true that no, Anna will not be able to lose all of her excess weight, some of the lipedema fat will remain even after weight loss. But she is probably around 500 or 600 pounds at this point. And putting that into perspective, she lost 11.5 liters of fat in that first surgery. And some of that was fluid that was put into her by the surgeon. But even if that 11.5 liters was all fat, that would amount to roughly 23 pounds. And given that she's going to have up to 6 surgeries according to her, that would total about 90 to 140 pounds. And while that is a huge amount, it's not for Anna. At minimum, she has around 300 pounds to lose. So even if every single one of her surgeries removed as much fat as that first massive surgery did, she would still be categorized as overweight or even obese. She is not a medical anomaly. She still has a massive amount of fat that she can and should lose on her own. But Anna will claim that she didn't do these surgeries to lose weight or be smaller. It was all to help manage her pain.
Sure, Jan.
So what would be the right way of addressing lipedema for somebody in such a late stage of obesity like Anna? Well, according to the ILA, it would be to address the disease of obesity first. Not by sucking out the fat, but addressing the root cause of what is causing this person to overeat to such an extent. Because in my opinion, nobody gets to 500 or 600 pounds without some sort of a disordered relationship with food and eating. It's not just greed and laziness. It's much more complex than that. However, there's a difference between saying this is not my fault, I'm not to blame, this is totally out of my control, and understanding that, hey, I had some circumstances. I was maybe dealt a bad hand, but now it is under my control to fix this. Anna's messaging that the only way to rid herself of this excess fat is to by literally suck it out with liposuction is really disempowering to other people in her situation. And in my opinion, it really leads people to believe that they too are helpless and hopeless to continue to gain weight. And that's just not true. But, oh well. Liposuction was done, you can't turn back time, and soon enough, Anna's gonna realize that there's no magic from liposuction.
That there was no more conservative treatments, that there was no magic from Wegovy.
So, what else has Anna been up to in her recovery from liposuction surgery? Well, she was going for walks, making sure to eat regularly, whatever that means.
But I was making sure to eat regular meals.
And yeah, I have snacks because I got bandaged today, so I deserve a little treat. I'm obviously not eating in a calorie deficit, which you should not do post-surgery. You need to heal and
just drink so much water.
And yes, drinking tons of water. For some reason, always with electrolytes, never just plain water. She's such a fitness queen.
so one of the things they get on you about, like, literally right away is hydration. So I drink Liquid IV, sugar-free, pretty much in every, like, jug of water I drink.
And she was also documenting her journey getting MLD treatments, or manual lymphatic drainage, which is another controversy between the North American or USA standard of care versus the international standard of care, and the research and the studies in that whole 5-part series, specifically part 2 of that series, because according to the ILA, there is no edema in lipedema. And without getting too confusing, put very simply, the ILA findings is suggesting that lipedema is not a fluid problem. That's where the word edema comes from. And therefore, the ILA concludes that MLD treatment has no scientific basis in the treatment of lipedema. And actually, in part 5, they very clearly state that manual lymphatic drainage, or MLD, has no effect on the lipedema itself. However, what I'm still a little bit unclear about is whether or not MLD would still be recommended for someone who has already had liposuction. Because the way that Anna was describing it kind of sounded like the MLD was required because of her liposuction. But I could be misunderstanding that. In any case, I don't think that massage is necessarily a bad thing. Like, I can't imagine that massage is hindering her progress. It's just the portrayal of MLD as a necessary part of treating lipedema that is the problematic part. Mainly because Anna's followers are going to believe anything that Anna says. And a lot of the time, Anna will use the excuse that she has these experts telling her what to do. And you know, if somebody's an expert, then there's no way that they could possibly make a mistake or have any sort of conflict of interest when promoting their own practice and their own clinic. But Anna has done her own research, according to her, and honestly, it's really a shame that all this controversy exists, because it does make things very confusing for somebody with lipedema. Who are we to believe when there's such conflicting information and controversial expert opinions? I honestly don't have an answer to solving that problem. I'm just using common sense, as well as looking at a massive amount of research that was done by not just a small group of researchers in North America. But anyway, MLD was not the only procedure that Anna went through that was somewhat controversial. She also spent some time with Dr. Karen Herbst.
To visit the literal legend that is Karen Herbst.
The same Karen Herbst that was one of the primary authors to the United States Lipedema Standard of Care. And the same Karen Herbst that is the head of research at the ALT program. And so Karen had Anna get into a CVAC machine. This apparently simulated her body going like up and down in altitude, and somehow that helped her lipedema.
We should get you in the CVAC.
Here's what's going on inside there. Basically, it's simulating a higher altitude, which is causing my body to flush out toxins, and it's reducing my inflammation.
And I'm not going to get into the science of it, and I'm not going to argue whether or not this CVAC is effective in treating lipedema. I'm just going to refer to the video by Sam at Every Size, where she pointed out the little detail that Anna failed to mention. This machine was for research purposes, and the machine that Karen had Anna get into was labeled as a prototype.
Dr. Karen Herbst is a researcher, and she is looking for new and innovative ways to treat lipedema. If you pay really, really close attention to Anna's video and TikTok, you can see on the base of that CVAC chair, there is a black plaque with white, bold lettering that says prototype. And that tells me immediately that this treatment is not a conservative treatment. It's an experimental one.
And thanks to Sam for having such a keen eye. I think she was the first one to point this out, and I'm not sure that I would have caught such a detail. But it's an important detail because Anna can't be truthful with her audience. Anna should have been the one that was explaining that this thing was a prototype or part of some new research. Instead, Anna had people in her comments complaining about how they didn't have access to such fancy machines, and probably believing that they too needed this treatment to address their lipedema.
And I traveled all this way for a couple of different reasons. Taking care of your lipedema surgically is only part of the process. There are a lot of conservative treatments that are also part of maintaining your health post-surgery, and even for some people are alternatives to surgery altogether.
But Karen wasn't done with Anna yet. Karen also used some high-tech gadgets to further diagnose Anna with lipedema, which she already knew she had. Karen showed how she was using a heat gun on Anna to show the areas of lipedema, as well as using this ultrasound on some parts of Anna's body. Were these machines necessary to diagnose Anna? Probably not, considering that Anna was already diagnosed more than 7 years ago and reaffirmed her diagnosis as early as this past spring.
What is that, lymphatic or blood? Or
Blood.
what? There's blood leaking in my arm?
Well, it's more likely plasma, so no red blood cells, but absolutely.
What does that mean?
Well, that happens in that's lipedema right there.
Okay.
Oh my god, how is she always so awkward? Now, using these devices could have some merit in furthering lipedema research. But the way that these machines are portrayed here, I think this should have really been clarified by Anna or by Karen. I think there's a real risk, showing these fancy gadgets and tools that are being used to diagnose Anna's lipedema when they're not typical diagnosing tools and not used in standard practice. I really think that should have been clarified for her audience, because her audience could again get the impression that these fancy tools are required in order to get a diagnosis or in order to be better assessed, when that's just not the case. In reality, any patient with severe morbid obesity as well as lipedema would have the same treatment plan, regardless of the outcome of these tests. It would be to address the disease of obesity first. Now, the last treatment or management of lipedema that Anna has been using that I want to mention is her use of compression garments. Anna is now almost constantly wearing compression gear, and you can see her wearing it underneath almost every outfit, which further goes to show that she was in fact not wearing the compression gear as she had claimed previously. But she's finally wearing it now, so that is good, and that is actually something that both standards seem to agree on, that compression is a good thing for people in Anna's position. But before getting into this, I didn't realize that there was so much controversy around the whole lipedema subject. In fact, I didn't know about it until I saw Colin come out with his 3-hour documentary about the subject. So if you're interested in hearing more about this whole controversy, I would highly suggest giving his video a watch, because it is very interesting and very thorough. And I'll link his video in the description below. And one thing that I got from his video was it really sounded like a Karen Herbst versus the world sort of issue. Karen Herbst being the lead researcher at the ALT program and the author of that lipedema standard of care for the US. The same Karen that put Anna into that CVAC machine and hit her with an x-ray or something. And the same Karen that confirmed that Anna did not have lymphedema, she only had lipedema. And yeah, I know those two words are very, very similar. Lymphedema is the swelling caused by fluid, and Anna only has lipedema, and she was quite happy to hear that.
So you do not have lymphedema.
Thank
down
God.
here.
That was the one thing I was like, I want to be able to get rid of the lipedema, use conservative treatments,
You don't
and not have
have
to
it.
do lymphedema for the rest of my life.
You don't have it.
But if Anna doesn't have lymphedema, how could she be a stage 4 lipedema patient, as she has so proudly proclaimed in the past, on multiple occasions, mind you, as well as her surgeon confirming that she's stage 3 or 4.
I'm stage 4, which is like the worst.
So the ILA, the International Lipedema Association, they completely disagree with this whole 4 stages of lipedema thing. And as you may remember, they even concluded that lipedema is not an edema problem. So it is separate from the issue of lymphedema. But even looking at the United States standard of care, where they do use these stages, stage 4 is defined as lipedema as well as lymphedema. So even going off of the flawed USA standard of care, Anna can't be stage 4 lipedema if she doesn't have lymphedema. I don't know, maybe she's not saying that she never had it, maybe she's just saying that she doesn't have it anymore. In any case, Anna's got all the compression gear that her heart desires. She's going to her MLD appointment. She got in that fancy CVAC machine and all the other treatments. But most important to her recovery, she's also back on Wegovy.
And I'm sharing this solely because a lot of people do not know it, because these medications usually get talked about in the terms of weight loss, but they also have other benefits which can be honestly life-changing for people with autoimmune conditions and like lymphatic conditions.
Or maybe people upwards of 500 pounds and hopelessly addicted to food. Weight loss meds is probably also life-changing for those people too, right?
So I am personally going back on Wegovy. I'm not endorsing it. I think you should go to your doctor. I think you should make the right decision for you. There are lots of different GLP-1s. That's just the one that happens to work best for me. What I will say is, for me as a patient with lipedema, those medications have changed my life. They have given me the ability to move when I'm inflamed.
I don't understand why she has so much trouble admitting that taking weight loss meds was helping her to lose weight, and that weight loss was helpful to her. She's always just dancing around this subject, and it's just frustrating. And this video was posted to her TikTok around early September 2024, so after her 2 liposuction surgeries. And I think it's important to document this now so there's no confusion in the future. She's not trying to hide the Wegovy, although she hasn't announced this to her wider audience on either Instagram or on YouTube. That being said, her uploads have also been very sparse, so I guess it's possible that she's planning to come out with this in the future. So to give her the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to say now that she's not trying to hide her Wegovy. She does seem to be open about it, at least on her TikTok. Not mentioning it a ton, but that's not really on brand for her to do anyway. Let's just hope that she does announce it to her YouTube audience sometime in the near future, because I think that's important for her audience to know. Because right now she is putting a ton of emphasis and enthusiasm in what I think is the wrong places. Really showcasing every step of the liposuction and the MLD and now the compression garments and all those fancy tools to either diagnose her lipedema or help with her inflammation somehow. But it's really hard to tell whether any of these efforts are doing anything to help with her weight loss or help with her lipedema. As I mentioned, she is constantly wearing this compression gear, which obviously has a bit of a slimming and smoothing effect. And given that she's never worn these things in the past, it's really hard to get a direct comparison between her prior to surgery and her today. On top of that, her most recent posts are all over the place. I don't know if she's doing this to intentionally confuse her audience regarding her progress, or rather lack of progress, but she has been posting a ton of old or reused content across her TikTok, Instagram, and her Facebook even. On Facebook, she wasn't even bothering to change the caption, posting about this Valentine's Day bath back in November of this year, or posting in this cute white dress from one of her photo shoots, but failing to mention that this was a photo shoot from Christmas of last year. And she posted again from the same photo shoot, claiming it to be a throwback, but I think this is only because her audience caught on to the fact that she was posting old content. In any case, with all of her social media feed being flooded with old or reused content or photos of her in tight compression gear, it's really hard to get a direct comparison or make any sort of conclusions about her progress so far. And instead of looking at the reality of her transformation from pre-surgery to post-surgery, Anna chose to post this obscure before and after shoot from one arbitrary point in time long before surgery when she was much larger, to some months after surgery that is unspecified. She's really doing the most to make it seem like surgery was the right choice for her and she is on track with her progress. But if we do another little before and after, this is Anna before surgery during her first round of Wegovy. And yet she posted this in November of this year to her Facebook. And the caption there alone is funny because Anna, you have had surgery now. But anyway, that was Anna long before surgery and back when she had some success on Wegovy. And this is Anna after surgery. Most of the recycled content that she's been posting has been back from when she lost 60 pounds on Wegovy. And I don't think that's a coincidence. That's from when she had probably lost the most amount of weight that she's ever lost. And I think she knows that now, 5 months post liposuction surgery, she's not seeing the progress and the weight loss that she should be seeing. And let's not forget that Anna already set herself up with an excuse just in case the liposuction didn't give her the results that she was looking for, saying that recovery is going to take 12 months and that her weight is going to fluctuate. And of course, pleading for sympathy because every time she weighed herself and the weight went up, she felt like she was failing. Some have speculated that the reason why Anna hasn't talked about her future surgeries, specifically on her arms, is because she failed to meet any sort of weight loss targets. And then by her now being back on Wegovy meds, that's sort of supporting the idea that she's trying to hurry up and lose the weight so that she can be approved for her next surgery. But there's really no knowing why Anna has chosen not to give any further updates regarding her next surgery date. She has dropped some hints, however, that she will be needing this surgery in the future. And this is just speculation, but she'll probably claim that the pain was just unbearable and she had to get the liposuction, and her mobility was just so far gone that this was her only option.
I am having an incredible amount of pain still in my shoulders, specifically this shoulder. The shoulder is a bit worse than this one.
So like when I go like up like this, I'm starting to lose this range of motion. Now I worked out today, so it's a little bit better because it's warm, right?
Right.
But if it's like cold, sometimes like when I was flying, flying made it really bad, and I was just like hurting, like physically it felt like I had like a torn rotator cuff or something.
She really is playing up the arm pain thing. But when I saw this video with her complaining so heavily about her shoulder pain, I immediately thought of her recent fitness guru arc that she's been plastering on her social media and YouTube. Because about 2 months prior to posting this whole workup with Karen, where Anna was just so inflamed and in pain, Anna had announced that she was cleared to work out again. And she was back at it with Copilot, or now Trainwell.
I'm getting my workout routine from an app called Trainwell. It used to be called Copilot. I used them before my surgery. I loved them, so it just made the easiest thing to transition back into it. I told her to give me like a beginner workout. I can't imagine it's gonna be that hard. Why should it be so hard? I mean, I've got to maintain something, right? But I'm gonna just try to keep my expectations low. I don't want this to be a defeating experience. I want to be just excited that I get to do it again. I'm so type A. I'm gonna be so mad if it's hard. I'm gonna be so mad at myself. It's okay. It's part of the process. Sucking is the first step at being good at something.
So yeah, Anna is back to training, and that's great. That's more than we see from most of the girls we cover here. So you know what? Great job getting out there, Anna. However, after looking at her workout and looking at her form during those exercises, I think it gives a clue as to why perhaps her shoulder is in pain.
30 seconds of windmill.
Besides the fact that what she's doing there is absolutely not a windmill, for a windmill you want to keep your arm overhead and look at it to make sure that it stays up there. You then bend your side, keeping your arm up, and eventually you want to have a weight up there, but it's not necessary, especially if you're doing this like as a stretch, and it's okay not to get all the way down to the ground. But for Anna, that seems to be the only thing that she's focusing on, just slamming her torso down as fast as she can to touch that hand to the ground with absolutely no regard for form. So while this would have been a good exercise for shoulder mobility, she's turned it into absolute trash. Another example is this overhead carry. Now, besides the fact that her arms are slowly falling, elbows bending, like of course that's gonna make the exercise harder, but she's also got her shoulders crunched so far up to her ears for the whole exercise. It's no surprise that this is gonna leave her with some tension in the shoulders after doing this for God knows how long.
The song was giving, so I started doing this. It was a bad idea. I'm not there yet.
And in this last example, first off, this is just a bad exercise. You know, it's not good for biceps and it's also not great for your triceps. There's just better options for each. But again, just take a look at her shoulders here, rounding forward and likely to cause her pain. And this is partially because this is just like a bad exercise, but also her whole biomechanics are just like now. I don't mean to be rude here, but her obesity has a real effect on how her body can move, regardless of the whole lipedema argument. As you gain weight and reach later stages of obesity, It's just the extra mass in your body that's going to prevent you from moving in correct form for a lot of these exercises. Just look at this diagram here. As you get larger and larger, the shoulders just naturally begin to roll more forward and more inward, to the point where the whole arm is rotated backwards with the palms facing behind you. And I don't think Anna is quite there yet, but this just goes to show that for somebody with obesity or severe morbid obesity, you need a trainer also specialized in obesity so that they can give you the right movements and the right cues, knowing that your body is different from the typical person and is going to need extra care and attention. And I just don't think that train wheel can be doing that for Anna, given what she looks like during these workouts. Because if Anna did have a proper trainer, they would help her understand that pain, not just muscle soreness, but like actual pain, is never a good thing when you're working out. And I think that Anna really needs some education on that matter, because I don't think she understands the difference between a good pain and a bad pain.
I mean, one movement in my lower back is sore. And I guess I forgot what it feels like when you first start working out.
Anna is really going to injure herself here, but at least she'll get that photo for her Instagram post showing her progress so far. Like, yes, Anna, your ass is half an inch lower after more than a year of training. Great job. And also thanks for confirming that you are in fact the same size, even with the compression gear. All that being said, one thing that Anna did that I actually think was a really good thing was her warm-up to her warm-up. Walking. This is the absolute best thing that you can do for yourself if you need to lose weight. Walking, or even swimming if you have access to that. But just as moderate intensity walking is great for someone like Anna. Holy fuck, that made me nervous. Did you see that? But of course Anna can't stop there. She's a runner.
I got some new running shoes because today I'm gonna run for the first time since surgery.
So the goal is just to see how far I can go. And I got new shoes because my gait has changed.
This is less than a year after that whole 5K run journey where she walked out of the place with a whole buttload of new shoes. You cannot convince me that her stride has changed that much that she needed a new pair of shoes after only a year. 3 months of that, she admitted that she hasn't been doing anything.
I guess I'm back in my fitness girl era, and let me know if you guys want to see more workouts in the future. I just wanted to share this one because it really was a big one for me to come back to working out after 3 months of literally doing nothing. So
I know that this is a very minor point, but it just irked me, you know, to see her buying even more shoes to just prove she's a runner. But whatever, maybe she's just burning through her runners faster than the typical person, because she does way more. So I guess it's possible that she's just putting them through more force and friction and wearing them down faster than expected. But aside from the extra stress that her weight is putting on her shoes, God damn her knees. Do we need to talk about this anymore? We know that for somebody of her size with admitted knee problems, running is probably not the best choice.
Did I run? Yes. Did I run at a good pace? Also yes. Did I feel sore way earlier than I used to feel? Yes. So, you know what? Progress over perfection. Not gonna let this be a loss. This is not a loss. This is the beginning of a win.
We've been over this. Running and jumping is just dangerous at her size. I don't know why she's putting herself through this. Oh yeah, because she's a runner. Oh, and the jumping. She also got herself a rebounder, and I thought this was going to be her whole personality for a minute there. She even said as much. But nope, this was the first and last mention of this thing. Honestly, probably a good thing, because I can't be sure whether or not she's exceeding the weight limits on this, but in some of those videos she looks pretty close to bottoming out. And even though this little trampoline had a handlebar, she didn't seem to like to use it very often. A fall at that size can be extremely dangerous. So I don't know why somebody in her position would choose to do this. In reality, this trampoline or rebounder thing is really just a gimmicky device sold as a way to treat lipedema. This, as well as this vibrator plate that Anna got for herself. She just stands on it and it shakes, and somehow that is supposed to help with the lipedema. I don't know. I don't buy it. Seems like a lot of effort and money to avoid just eating less. Okay, so I may not agree with Anna's training methods, but in reality, aside from the outright dangerous stuff, any form of exercise is good, and more than what most Americans are getting. In my opinion, you should use exercise primarily for enjoyment and secondarily for strength. And aesthetics is just a nice side effect. But for weight loss, Diet is always going to be key. So if you like running, you're a psychopath, first of all, but if you like it, do that. But if you don't like running, no worries, you don't have to run. There's cycling and swimming and martial arts and all these other sort of sports like soccer and tennis that you can try. And all these other things that are fun and actually good for your stamina. I personally am looking forward to spring to get back onto my aerial hoop without freezing my ass off. That's my exercise, I like it, and to supplement, I also lift weights. But I'm not going to run. I got a little heart and I've got asthma, and I just don't like it. But Anna, the brave warrior that she is, she's got asthma too, but she is pushing through it. Whatever, Anna, this whole crying for attention and pity is just bothersome at this point. Now, I know that a lot of people see videos like mine and think that I'm just being mean to Anna. That's part of it. But also, I just don't like people who lie. And to me, Anna lies a lot. And she's influencing a lot of people to follow a similar liposuction path as she has gone through. And from what I've seen, liposuction is not the way to go for somebody with obesity, or in her case, severe morbid obesity. It's just not smart and even detrimental. And that's not just my opinion. So before we close off this chapter, I want to read a brief excerpt from the International Lipedema Association. As always, when things change, there is resistance, and even experts in the field of lymphology are challenging the paradigm shift consensus. It is difficult to accept that the established doctrines of many decades are suddenly proving to be wrong, and people find it painful to question their beliefs and position. It is also associated with a fear of loss, a loss of acquired expertise, a loss of familiar certitude, a loss of control. Patients who have lipedema face a different concern when confronted with this change in the perspective of their disease. At a time when patients are stigmatized and discriminated against because of being overweight or because of the shape of their legs, it is easier for them to believe that a medical condition is responsible for all past adversity. Instead, however, it would be more helpful for them to better understand the complex background of lipedema. Understandably, it is easier to believe in the accumulation of fluid in the body and receive MLD sessions rather than undertake regular, enforced physical activity under compression. It is also easier to think of liposuction as a solution than to deal with psychological vulnerability or problems of self-acceptance. Nonetheless, with patient education and motivation, they can change their way of thinking from the passive attitude of being a victim to adopting an active, positive, and self-aware approach to lipedema, and therefore themselves.